Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn webinar, Complete Visibility into Your Retail Business with Jet Reports and LS Retail BI, brought to you by ArcherPoint and Jet Reports. Our presenter today is Emily Oster, Vice President of U.S. Sales at Jet Reports. Starting her career as an accountant, Emily transitioned her focus to working with Microsoft Dynamics NAV partners and customers on reporting needs and solutions. She has a passion for helping other finance professionals and executives get their job done more smoothly with better reporting in Excel. Today, Emily will provide you with a comprehensive overview of LS Retail BI, a result of a partnership between LS Retail and Jet Reports that resulted in a comprehensive business intelligence and reporting solution for LS Nav that includes analysis cubes specifically built for retail and hospitality. Based on Jet Enterprise, the BI and reporting platform for Microsoft Dynamics NAV, LSBI gives you clear visibility into your operational data and includes non-POS sales, loss prevention, and member management. In just under an hour, Emily will show you how to quickly analyze critical data such as retail sales across stores, item variant profitability, loss prevention statistics, and will discuss how to make informed decisions based on member management information and more. Let's go ahead and get started. Emily, over to you.
Thanks, Suzanne. So, I'm looking forward to showing everyone today Jet Enterprise LS Retail BI, so let's go ahead and get started. First thing we'll do is go over the agenda that we'll be covering today. We'll spend a few minutes talking about what business intelligence is so that we're all on the same page moving forward throughout the session. We'll talk specifically about why BI is so important in the retail industry. We'll certainly take a look at the LS Retail BI product demonstration. We'll spend some time reviewing the LS Retail BI components and the system requirements, and then do a closing and Q&A. So the first thing I wanted to do is throw up a definition of what business intelligence is. Ask 5 or 10 people on the street what BI is, and you're likely to get 5 to 10 different answers. But from the Data Warehousing Institute, BI is, or business intelligence, is a set of methodologies, processes, and technologies that transform raw transactional data into meaningful and useful information used to enable more effective, strategic, tactical, and operational insights and decision making. Now, that's quite a mouthful, so what does it actually mean? At its most general level, BI is the software and technology that helps you, that will help you be able to make sense out of your data. It will allow you to consolidate data, whether this is from one data source or multiple data sources, and structure it in a way so that you can summarize it and easily make decisions based on that data. Now I want to talk a little bit and spend a few minutes talking about some of the mechanics and the software and hardware components involved in a BI system. Again, this is so that moving forward throughout the session, if I throw out terminology like data warehouse or cubes, we're all on the same page and have a little bit of background about what these things actually mean. In a BI environment, you're going to have three areas. You're going to have your raw live database or databases. You're going to have your data warehouse, and you're going to have your cubes. So the first thing is pretty straightforward, the live, raw, transactional database or databases. An ERP system like Microsoft Dynamics NAV can have hundreds of tables and thousands of fields, all in this very complex data model. So as many of you are probably aware, using an ERP system like Microsoft Dynamics NAV, you'll have these hundreds of tables and thousands of fields. But really, the average organization only uses a small fraction of these tables and fields on a regular basis for reporting and analytics. This is where the idea of a data warehouse can become so prevalent. Think about a data warehouse as being a database that's going to be used solely for reporting purposes. It's going to be optimized for reporting and only going to use the information from your transactional database that's going to be relevant to your organization for reporting. So for example, in Dynamics NAV, again, you could have hundreds of tables and thousands of fields. Once that information goes into the data warehouse, maybe you have 40 or 50 tables and a couple of hundred fields. So already the information is starting to be organized by subject, and again, you're only pulling over that information that's going to be relevant to your organization for reporting and analytics. In the data warehouse stage, you can also combine information from multiple data sources, and I think this is particularly important for those of you in the retail industry. Now, the cubes are going to take the information from the data warehouse one step further and start to organize the data by what we call reporting subject. There could be a reporting subject for finance, one for sales, one for AR, one for inventory, things like that. Cubes will also get all of the information from the data warehouse down to the measure and dimension level. And what does this mean? Cubes will always consist of measures and dimensions, measures being the numerical values that you want to be able to track and analyze. These could be the numerical values that are stored in your database. So things like sales amount, debit amount, credit amount. It could also be any pre-calculated measures that are particularly important to your organization. So let's say your organization has a very specific way that you calculate something like gross profit or gross profit percentage. Perhaps those numerical values aren't stored in your database, but you need to have access to them on a regular basis for reporting and analytics. Well, you have the ability to write those metrics into the cubes and have them available to you whenever you're doing your reporting. In addition to measures, cubes will also be comprised of dimensions. And dimensions are simply the way that you want to be able to look at your various measures. So think of a dimension as GL account number, or customer, or item category, or product line, or store, or staff. Again, simply the way that you want to be able to look at the various measures. Now, in my opinion, there are three main benefits of doing your reporting and analytics against the data warehouse and cube environment versus a live database. First is around ease of use. So since all of the table and field relationships and linkings are all done on the back end in the data warehouse and cube environment, the average user creating queries and reports doesn't need to know that complex data model and how all of those tables and fields relate together. The second is around speed. Because the information is been optimized for reporting and because you're only looking at the relevant data from the live database, queries out of the cube and data warehouse environment are going to be much, much faster than going against the traditional live database. And lastly is around, again, this idea of consolidation of multiple data sources. So when the end user is creating reports against the data warehouse and cube environment, it could be one database they're looking at or 100 databases. But for all intents and purposes, the user is just going to the data warehouse and cube environment, and again, they don't need to know how all of those databases relate to each other. They just need to know what measures and dimensions they want to return in their queries. So now that we've talked a little bit about the basics and the mechanics around what a traditional business intelligence system looks like, let's talk a little bit about why BI is so important in the retail sector. Now, the retail sector was actually one of the first sectors to make significant investments in collecting and integrating data into a data warehouse and cube environment. And why is this? Well, as I was doing my research on the retail industry, several key factors kept continuously coming up. Competition is fierce in the retail sector, and I don't need to tell you guys that. If coming out of the recession wasn't enough, today's retailers have to contend with the globalization of the marketplace, the increasing role of online sales channels, price pressures from big box retailers, and emerging players in the market every day. The customer's buying process and product preference is also changing every day. Now, price is still a main consideration and it must be transparent, but emerging social values and trends also must be considered. Now, think about the ever-increasing demand from consumers for organic, local, and non-GMO groceries. Now, this wasn't a factor 5 years ago, but it certainly is today, and big chain grocery stores had to respond or lose their customers. Underperforming inventory and out of stocks led the top 2 concerns in the 2010 Retail Systems Research Merchandising Benchmark Study. Retailers are operating on reduced inventory levels, and understanding historical trends, product assortments, and who is buying what and when is crucial. Retail organizations also need to be able to analyze information from multiple systems, including their ERP and accounting systems, point-of-sale systems, CRM systems, customer loyalty systems, and then legacy accounting systems. How can you make sense of all of that data when it's in disparate systems? Data warehousing can help with this. And then simply information and answers to questions about your customers and their buying habits. Questions like, what products are selling and why? How effective are our promotions and why? How are individual stores and employees performing and why? And how are sales and profits trending and why? These are just a few questions that Business Intelligence and Jet Enterprise for LS Retail will be able to answer or help you in answering. And here's an example of that. Here we're looking at just a simple quadrant where we're looking at sales of leather jackets on a Monday through Friday basis. Now, all of this data exists in the ERP system, but not necessarily in this format. You can use a tool like Jet Enterprise to ask the right questions, highlighting the critical information. The question of how do we increase sales leads to a what items are selling, which leads to a what trends exist in those sales flows. You can see from this chart we get a spike in leather jacket sales to men between the hours of 11:30 a.m. and 2 p.m. Now, we know that if we display leather jackets during those 2 hours, during those few hours, we will sell more of them. Maybe we can even raise the price. In fact, let's test a price increase at 2 locations for a few weeks and then do the same trend analysis and see what happened. Now let's do some analysis to pick which locations are best for the test. These types of scenarios are easy to do and very successful when using a tool like Jet Enterprise. So now that we've talked a little bit about what Jet Enterprise is, what BI is, and again, why it's so crucial and important in the retail sector, I want to spend the next portion of our time together looking at the Jet Enterprise for LS Retail product demonstration. So I will exit out of PowerPoint, and I'm going to go into Excel. And the first thing I wanted to do is show you guys some example dashboards that have been created using Jet Enterprise. For purposes of the demonstration today, I'll be showing you Jet Enterprise using Excel as a front end. For those of you on the call today that are existing Jet Essentials users, you'll see we've got our Jet ribbon up here with all of our Jet Reports functionality displayed. So what we're looking at on this particular dashboard is some key metrics where we're looking at our top 5 selling items, retail sales by item promotion, and I'll just scroll down a little bit so we can see some of these other graphs, and then retail sales for item category by special line. Across the left-hand side and across the top are the various slicers and filter options that have been set up for this particular dashboard. So if I want to start analyzing the retail sales by item, if I want to start analyzing that data, how it trends by store or by item category, I can simply start selecting some different slicer options to see how the charts and graphs will update. I can select individual stores or multiple stores. I can select individual years to see how information is trending or multiple years together, various item categories, and notice how the divisions and the product groups updated automatically when selecting the various item categories. Since we're using Excel as a front end, and most organizations are very familiar with Excel and use it on a regular basis, It's a very easy front-end tool to learn, and you'll see that in just a few minutes when we take a look at how to build a dashboard using Jet Enterprise. Let me show you guys one other dashboard. Here's an example of a retail gross sales amount comparison where we're looking at retail gross amounts by stores, by employees, by companies, and then retail gross amount by location. In this particular dashboard, we have the ability to filter by staff, by location, by year, by company, and of course, in the retail sector, it's going to be extremely important to be able to filter and look at trends at the individual store level. The last dashboard I want to show you is a comprehensive dashboard where we're looking at information, but we're really looking at it at the store level. So we have the ability to look at transactions on an hourly basis, transactions by weekday, by staff, and then, of course, some information around loss prevention looking at voided transactions. Now, instead of going through this particular dashboard with you all in more detail, I thought what I would do is show you how quickly and easily you can build a dashboard from scratch using Jet Enterprise for LSBI. So take a look at the dashboard that I currently have up on my screen. In just under, probably take me about 6 or 7 minutes, we'll build the same or a very similar dashboard to this using Excel pivot table functionality. So to do that, what I'm going to do is start with a blank Excel workbook. I've got my Jet ribbon with all of my Jet Reports functionality listed on it. And what I'm going to do is select the pivot table option. Using pivot table functionality is probably the easiest and the fastest way to build queries using Jet Enterprise. Certainly, if you don't want your reports and your queries to have a pivot table look and feel, you can always use other functionality in the tool to format the reports in a way that makes most sense for your organization. To build a dashboard using Jet Enterprise, what I'm going to do is simply select 4 key performance metrics that I want to analyze, create individual worksheets with pivot tables and pivot charts, and then link them all together with slicers and filters on one centralized dashboard sheet. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the first worksheet in my workbook and I'll simply rename it Dashboard. This is where we'll tie back all of the other pivot tables that we'll create in just a few minutes. So on my second worksheet, what I'm going to do on the Jet ribbon is select the pivot table option. I'm going to choose my project for LS Retail. And here you can see a list of the 6 pre-built cubes that we have specifically for LS Retail. We have cubes around finance, inventory, payables, purchasing, receivables, and sales. Now, please be aware that this is only a fraction of what you're going to get with Jet Enterprise for LSBI. Jet Enterprise for LSBI is a fully customizable solution, meaning you can customize the pre-built cubes that we've created, you can build new cubes from scratch, and again, combine information from your other data sources. I'll select the sales cube and click OK. And in the pivot table field list, what we will see is a list of all of the measures and the dimensions that exist within this cube. So to build a query, all we need to do is select the various measures and dimensions that we would like, put them in our column, row, or values areas, and then again, use Excel functionality to create a chart or a graph to visually represent the data. So the dashboard that we're going to create will allow us to look at several key store statistics, including sales by day of week, receipt count by staff, and voided transactions. So again, to build this dashboard, we're going to start by creating some pivot tables and graphs, and then we'll link them all together to that one centralized dashboard page. So first thing I want to do is look at which items are selling at what time during the day. So what I'm going to do is select the retail receipt count, and I would like to look at it by item category. So I will scroll down until I find my item category option. And I think I'm going to drag item category over to columns. And then lastly, I want to see it by hour, so I'm going to scroll down until I get to my time of day dimension, and we'll select the by hour option. Now, this is kind of hard to look at all on one screen, so let's go ahead and make sense of. So let's go ahead and insert an area chart so we can look at it visually. And I'll just copy this down there. All right, I've got my first pivot table and pivot chart created, so let's move on to my second KPI. Let's look at sales receipts by day of week so we can identify which sales have the most and least sales and by which POS terminal. Again, I'll go to my jet ribbon, select the pivot table option, go to my LS, retail cubes, and again, we'll select the sales option. The measure I'm going to select will also be retail receipt count like we did in the previous pivot table, but this time we're going to look at it by the POS terminal and then by the day of the week. So let's go and grab POS terminal. And let's put that over in the column. And let's go and grab the day of the week. Oh, and that's under posting date. And I'll just move that under the rows. Let's represent this visually with a column chart. Put that right here. All right, the next KPI I want to look at is gross sales by staff. Again, I'll go to my jet ribbon. I'll select the pivot table option, select the LS retail cubes, and we'll stick with the sales cube. This time I would like to look at retail gross sales amount, so I'll find that measure. And I want to look at it by staff, so I'll go and find that dimension. And looks like we've got about 22, 23 staff members, all with various degrees of sales from 12 from unknown to just 9.2 million. So let's actually add a filter so we're only looking at maybe our top 10 staff members. And let's represent this data in a pie chart. We can see that Diana is doing a lot of the sales. The last KPI I want to look at is going to be around loss prevention. Now we know that in the retail sector, loss prevention is going to be a major, major concern. So in this area of the dashboard, I want to look at one of our loss prevention measures, which is going to be voided transactions by staff member. Again, I'm going to go back to that trusty jet ribbon, select the pivot table option, and we'll go and grab the LS retail cubes for sales. And let's look at voided transaction count. And let's look at it by staff member. I'll go down and grab that dimension. And I'll go to Insert, and let's select a bar chart. So as you can see, we've got 4 individual sheets with our various KPIs and then the information represented visually. Now, the last step that I need to do is link all of these together on our centralized dashboard page. Now, this is going to be a lot easier than you might anticipate. All I need to do is simply use Excel functionality to copy and paste the information onto my dashboard worksheet. So I'll go ahead and copy and paste the first chart and the second chart. We'll grab the third chart. And then the fourth chart. Perfect. So now I have all of my charts. The next thing, or last thing I need to do is format this particular dashboard so it looks the way I would like it to look, and then also add some slicers so that the user of this particular dashboard can go in and make filter changes and what have you. Now, for sake of time, I'm not putting in things like chart titles and things like that, but again, that's all going to be done using standard Excel functionality. So I'm just going to select one of the charts and go to the Insert option and select the Slicer option. I'm going to give the user of this dashboard the ability to slice and dice by store. So I'm going to grab the store dimension. By staff. Let's go and grab the staff dimension. And then by posting date year. And I'll select OK. I'm just going to go ahead and bring this over and drag it up. So I'm just doing a little bit of formatting and just a little more. Bring that up. Now if I start slicing and dicing, you can see that it's changing the information on this particular chart, but not on any of the other charts. So what we need to do is link all of these charts together, and that's pretty easy to do. I'll right-click on the slicer and select Pivot Table Connections, and I'll just connect it to all 4 pivot tables on this worksheet. And we'll do it for each slicer. Just going to do a little bit of additional formatting to clean this up and let it have a little bit more of a dashboard look and feel to it. And now we have our completed dashboard. And again, the ability to slice and dice by store, staff, or year. So in just under 10 minutes, with no understanding of the structure of the database, I was able to get a meaningful, comprehensive dashboard report that I can use indefinitely to analyze information for my various stores and locations. One other thing I want to point out to everyone before we jump back into PowerPoint is the ability to schedule and automate the distribution of your reports and dashboards. If I go back to the Jet ribbon right here and select the Schedule option, my Jet Scheduler window will pop up. And what the Jet Scheduler will allow me to do is set this report to run via a schedule. So it could be daily, weekly, monthly. I can have it update on the first day of the month, on the last day of the month. You can specify who you want that report to get distributed to by using the email option right here. You can email reports using Outlook or SMTP. You can specify who you want the reports to get updated to. And in the output option, you can have reports leave and go out as Excel workbooks like we have here, or as PDF worksheets, as PDF files or as HTML files as well. With Jet Enterprise LS Retail BI, you also have the ability to report against the live database. So with the settings area here, you can see I've got a connection to live databases. So if I'd like to go directly against a live database for maybe my financial reporting or something like that, I have the ability to do that as well. So now that we've taken a look at Jet Enterprise for Okay, perfect. Now that we've completed the product demonstration for Jet Enterprise for LS Retail, let's talk a little bit about what you're going to get with the Jet Enterprise for LS Retail solution. As part of the work that we partnered with LS Retail on, we created several KPIs specifically for the retail industry. So again, these are KPIs around loss prevention. So being able to determine, what's going on with your stores from a loss prevention point of view. We've also written in specific KPIs around sales analysis, again, for time of day, day of week, seasonality, etc. We've written KPIs around basket analysis. So, essentially customers that purchase X also purchased Y. Being able to determine, if your customer purchases a sweater, are they also going to purchase socks or things like that to go with them? Sales for top and bottom analysis, so the top sales versus the bottom analysis. Actuals to budgets. And then Jet Enterprise for LS Retail also comes with a full financial reporting solution. So the ability to, again, hit the live database, pull general ledger detail and information for your financial reporting. It comes with a library of pre-built reports and is a highly customizable, scalable solution that will be able to grow with you as your organization grows. I want to briefly talk about the system requirements for LSBI. Software components, we'll have a software and a hardware component. SQL Server 2005 or later. It will work with the NAV native server or the SQL Server, Microsoft.NET 4.0 or later, NAV 4.0 or later. So we go back to very old versions of Dynamics NAV, which is great, as well as, of course, having compatibility with the latest versions of Dynamics NAV and Excel as Microsoft releases them. Hardware requirements, server with 3 gigs of RAM or higher, and then a server which is large enough to accommodate, with a large enough hard drive to accommodate a NAV database. Now, for purposes of this particular presentation, we're not looking at the back-end functionality of Jet Enterprise, so how you would go about customizing the cubes or anything like that. But certainly if that's something that people are interested in looking at, just email the folks over at ArcherPoint and they can help set that up for you. So with that, I would like to thank everyone very much for their time today. Of course, for more information, simply contact info@archerpoint.com. And I got everybody out of here, or wrapped this up in well under an hour, so I always figure that taking less time is not going to be a problem for anyone. But again, thank you to everyone who viewed this session today. We very much appreciate it. And for more information, just take a look at the email address on my screen.
Great. Thanks so much, Emily. And thanks everybody who's tuned in for this presentation. We do appreciate you setting aside a few minutes of your busy day for this webinar. We hope you consider it time well spent. To continue to help us offer value, we'd like to ask that you take a few more minutes just to give us your feedback and again provide topics that you would like to hear covered.